Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. Now, before we get into this very important topic, I wanted to preface with a video showing you how a police officer physically assaulted me before. Now, the reason I want to do this is because we're about to get into a very important topic about everything that's happening behind the scenes in the upsurge of violence that we're seeing on the streets in the United States. Now, this video happened during Occupy Wall Street, where me and my friends thought we saw a police officer dressed up as Antifa. We started filming him, and then...
Look your picture. Hey, don't put your hand on me.
This police officer jumped over a barricade and punched me because I was filming him. Now, how do I know he was a police officer? Well, I pretty much chased him down the street screaming at police officers to arrest the man who just physically punched me.
This man just assaulted me. Can you guys please take care of him? Just assaulted me. I have it on video. Guys, this guy just assaulted me.
To which, no surprise to me at all, the police officers just let him go, but I didn't stop and followed this man for a block and a half with other police officers, not letting him go away until he had to go behind police lines in order to fully avoid me. I also saw the same man later that night at the protest, confronted him again until he had to run into a police vehicle to escape me. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I saw an old 1969 COINTELPRO document that has been declassified that specifically specified how the US government needed to exacerbate racial tensions on purpose in order to weaken the anti-war movement. You could see the document in full, which will be in the description below. Now, does that remind you of anything that could be possibly happening today? Now, follow with me on this. The official COINTELPRO program that was instituted by the FBI used many dirty tricks in order to undermine progressive movements. They planted false media stories, published bogus leaflets and other publications in the name of a targeted group. They forged correspondence, sent anonymous letters, and made anonymous telephone calls. They spread misinformation about meetings and events, set up pseudo-movement groups run by government agents, manipulated or strong-armed parents, employers, landlords, school officials, and others to cause trouble for activists. They used bad jacketing to create suspicion about targeted activists, sometimes with lethal consequences. People were threatened, there was illegal break-ins, there was vandalism, assaults, beatings, and assassinations, all being conducted officially by the FBI to go against protest movements. Now, it's been well documented that the NYPD had agent provocateurs, police officers dressed up as activists during Occupy Wall Street to incite violence. This is why I kept an eye out for agent provocateurs and police officers dressed up as Antifa in New York City because I knew what they were up to. And because of that, I had to face repercussions from the NYPD. That beat the crap out of me on a number of instances, knowing who I was, and unsuccessfully didn't deter us from actually continuing to do this very important job. We even have a whole playlist on our YouTube channel of all the things we had to go through because we were uncovering these agent provocateurs, which will also be linked in the description below so you can see it for yourself. And the reasons I'm bringing all of this up is to expose to you right now how COINTELPRO 2.0 is well and alive in the United States right now, and it's being used against all of us. During Donald Trump's inauguration, DC police infiltrated the Antifa group, and in many instances, the police are not only infiltrating them, but are the cause of violence at these events, which has been documented time and time again. Just like in Montreal when peaceful protesters tried to stop two masked men from throwing rocks and inciting violence with the police, these men were caught by peaceful activists with rocks in their hands when they were inciting violence, to which the police department had to respond and of course denied that they were even involved. And then later on, when the dust settled, they finally admitted that they were police officers, admitting that it was police officers who were instigating the violence. Now, of course, this was a few years ago, and the police have gotten a lot smarter than before, because in this picture, you could even see the agent provocateurs having the same shoes as the riot police. Now, obviously, the tactics by the police and the establishment and government have become more sophisticated and a lot more intelligent after these obvious blunders that they made, but we have to understand that this is continuing to happen as we're learning from the Toronto G20, where the police engaged in purposeful provocation as undercover agents. And guess what? This is bigger than just the left-right paradigm, bigger than the alt-left or the alt-right, because people are targeted on both political spectrums to divide and conquer everyone. As we just learned about a few days ago, where the FBI heroically stopped a plot by a far right-wing activist to blow up buildings in Oklahoma. But what they forgot to tell you was that this was a mentally ill person that was entrapped and set up by the FBI, a man who was incapable of daily functions because of his mental disorder, who the FBI went behind the parent's back and used and pushed him towards more extremist views. FBI agents have even gone as far as to set up their own phony white supremacist gang, and clearly not only have infiltrated far-right causes, but are also running them. The US government has never stopped inciting violence and extremist views on the left and right since 1969. This is a program that continues, and then when these two groups finally meet in the streets in the United States with unknown members of government agents inside of them, what does the police do during these incidences? Well, they back off. They stand down. They completely disappear from the situation, allowing the situation to become very violent, not doing their jobs, and allowing the violence to increase to where now we have people dying in the streets in the United States with attacks against each other. And I personally have seen this many times, not only in Berkeley, but all over the country, where the police literally run away, stand down, and allow violence to escalate. And that's exactly what we saw in Charlottesville. And Charlottesville was only the beginning, as we're seeing violence escalate all throughout this country to the point where people are beating each other up for no reason at all, even when they're on the same side sometimes. And now with the recent clashes in Boston and Berkeley, we are seeing the left and Antifa lose the optics game. They are being disavowed by the Washington Post, MSNBC, Nancy Pelosi, Mayor Bloomberg, and others, to the point where the same repressive reciprocal actions that they used against the right will be shortly used against them, continuing and perpetrating the cycle of violence, hate, radicalization, extremism, creating a situation which of course will hurt all of us. Because when the average American sees this violence escalating on both sides, they will normally ask for a police state in order to stop it. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Congress just quietly passing a bill that allows warrantless searches of some states in the United States. We are seeing Trump moving to fully militarize police forces all across the United States, as he is rolling back Obama-era restrictions on providing military gear for police departments all across this country, which sadly now most Americans do support. And that's only one aspect of an encroaching police state that is using these incidences to usurp our power and control and give it over to the government, as we're seeing more restrictive laws being put into place, more censorship of online content both from the left and the right, and sadly the majority of the public are not only being manipulated into believing that this is good, but they're pushing for it. The whole situation from my point of view is being engineered here against us. And sadly, there's very few rational voices actually exposing this problem reaction solution plot that's happening against all of us. And the media, both mainstream and alternative, are a big part of that. And I personally believe that the media are the main ones at fault here. The biggest currency online right now is not Bitcoin. It's victimhood. It's victimization that's being used by both sides of the spectrum in order to push people against each other to divide and conquer us. And people are so hungry for victimhood that they're even lying about it. Like this man who claimed he was stabbed after being mistaken for a Nazi, who was just caught lying and making the whole story up. Like this Muslim woman who made up a New York City subway hate attack by supposed Trump fans that was totally made up, that never happened. Or this Jewish man who was arrested for a series of anti-Semitic phone calls and graffiti all over New York City. There's an agenda here that you need to be aware of. As we just seen Salon.com openly hope for a civil war, not just calling for one, hoping for one, and telling you that you need to pick a side. We've seen countless race baiting, misinformation, and you need to realize this is not an accident. It's a two-pronged problem. One is a financial incentive with outrage that makes you click, and a second one is an even sinister one, as we learned from another declassified US government operation called Operation Mockingbird that was declassified and showed how US intelligence agencies had full control of the US mainstream media, even having executives at these media institutions and CIA journalists writing fake news for a bigger political agenda. This is declassified. This is actually what has happened in the United States, and it has not stopped. As the US government just last year legalized Operation Mockingbird, where now the FBI can legally impersonate the media. We found out from other brave journalists about how the CIA would come to them with pre-written articles telling them to publish this. or else face repercussions. And while the establishment media is helping the government polarize situations, divide people on race, on sex, on class, and anything else they can make up in order to divide and conquer us, at the same time, it's people like me and other alternative media, even like Ron Paul, former congressman and presidential candidate, who are being censored online. And now the same people who created this problem that the American public is asking for a solution for are the same ones who are making disagreeing with the status quo the new hate speech. So this is a multiply pronged attack that goes after free speech, the freedom of expression, as we're seeing elected officials in this country calling to shut down events. People need to realize the same people calling for this censorship, calling for these laws, calling for these presidents to silence people you disagree with will eventually be used to silence you. So while government agencies infiltrate, incite violence with the left and right, with the mainstream media doing their bidding, using psychological warfare to divide us even more, to radicalize it, to spread more extremism ideologies that lead to actions that cause violence in the streets of America, the real issues in this country like the war on the middle class, the destruction of our food and water supply, the increase of impunity for corporations and governments, and censorship of real alternative independent media, foreign wars of aggression, trillions of dollars being spent on war, all those issues, all the issues that are important to us are swept underneath the rug, are never dealt with, or never rectified, are never justified because people are being engineered to argue about statues. Please don't be a dumbass, don't be distracted, don't allow fear to rule you, do not be intimidated, do not be distracted, and do not be divided. The answer and solutions are within all of us, and realizing this is happening is the first step to walking away from it. So if you found this video important, please share it with your friends and family members. And remember, we have more things in common than we have that divide us. From the bottom of my heart, I wanted to thank everyone who donates on wearechange.org/donate, because if it wasn't for you, I would not be able to be here. We mainly get one-time $5 donations, and that's the only reason we're able to be here and not cater to the left or right or establishment, nor the corporations or the government. We're here for you because we are change. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching.
Proving again, he's a police officer.